When it comes to American coins, few carry as much mystery, excitement, and hidden treasure as the Washington quarter. At first glance, these coins might look like ordinary pocket change, but collectors know that certain dates and conditions can turn them into life-changing treasures worth thousands, even millions of dollars. Imagine holding a simple quarter in your hand that could pay for a brand new car, a luxury vacation, or even a house. In this video, we'll uncover the shocking values of some of the most incredible Washington quarters you should never overlook. First up, the 1965 Washington quarter dollar. The 1965 Washington quarter might look like an ordinary coin, but hidden behind its simple design lies a world of staggering value, jaw-dropping auction records, and stories that can excite every collector. Picture this: a coin you could easily mistake for loose pocket change actually being worth more than a brand new luxury car, or even enough to buy a house in today's market. That's the true magic of the 1965 quarter, its ability to surprise, shock, and reward those who understand its rarity. And in this part of the video, we're going to unlock every single secret this coin holds. Back in 1965, something dramatic was happening in the U.S. coinage system. Silver was being phased out of circulation coins due to skyrocketing silver prices. Before that year, Washington quarters were struck in 90% silver. But beginning in 1965, the U.S. Mint transitioned to a copper-nickel clad composition, meaning the 1965 quarter was the very first of its kind. This change makes it historically significant, and collectors love anything that marks a turning point in numismatic history. A quarter that represents the end of silver and the beginning of clad coinage is no ordinary coin. It's a milestone. Now here's where the excitement begins. While most 1,965 quarters are worth only their face value of 25 cents, some rare varieties and special examples have skyrocketed into the thousands, tens of thousands, and even hundreds of thousands of dollars at auction. And the most mind-blowing part? Some collectors believe certain rare 1965 quarters could even be valued in the millions of dollars if the right combination of condition, rarity, and collector demand comes together. One of the most famous varieties of the 1965 Washington quarter is the 1965 silver quarter error. Yes, you heard that right. While quarters were supposed to be copper-nickel clad in 1965, a few were mistakenly struck on leftover 90% silver planchets from 1964. These wrong planchet errors are like hitting the jackpot for collectors. If you find one of these silver 1965 quarters, its value is staggering. In pristine condition, they have sold for more than $7,000 to $12,000 at auction. And imagine this. Experts say if a flawless, uncirculated silver 1965 quarter ever surfaces in the perfect grade, it could easily cross into the six-figure range, perhaps even approaching $1 million, given how historic and rare it is. But the silver error isn't the only story here. Regular clad 1965 quarters can also be worth incredible amounts depending on their condition. The grading scale for coins goes up to 70, with MS 70 meaning a flawless, mint-state coin with no imperfections. Most 1965 quarters are heavily circulated, scratched, and worn down, which makes high-grade examples incredibly scarce. A normal 1965 clad quarter in average condition is only worth a quarter, but if you find one graded MS 67 or higher, the value jumps dramatically. For example, a 1965 Washington quarter graded MS 67 Plus by PCGS once sold for over $12,000. That's $12,000 for a coin most people overlook as pocket change. Now think about that for a moment. If an ordinary clad quarter in superb condition can fetch that kind of money, what would happen if someone discovers a near-perfect or flawless MS 68 or MS 69 example? The numbers could soar into the hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe even touching $1 million. That's how intense the collector market can get for rare conditions. And it gets even more fascinating. Beyond silver planchet errors and high-grade examples, there are also dramatic transitional errors. Transitional errors occur when a coin is struck using the wrong metal composition during a changeover year. Since 1965 marked the shift from silver to clad, a few experimental strikes and mint mistakes slipped through. Some researchers claim that extremely rare 1965 quarters were minted on 40% silver planchets, meant for later special strikes, making them some of the most coveted error coins in the world. If one of these were to surface in pristine condition, its value could easily rival or surpass some of the most expensive U.S. coins ever sold, potentially in the millions of dollars. Collectors also hunt for double die varieties from 1965. A double die occurs when the design elements are imprinted twice at slightly different angles during minting, creating a shadowed or doubled look on the lettering or date. While not as famous as some other double dies, any verified 1965 double die quarter can bring in hundreds or thousands of dollars. Combine that with a high-grade condition, and you're looking at a serious treasure. Now let's talk about what makes the 1965 quarter so engaging for everyday people. Accessibility. Unlike coins that are almost impossible to find, the 1965 quarter was minted in huge numbers, meaning examples still float around in circulation today. That means anyone, yes, even you, could check your pocket change or old coin jar and stumble upon a valuable error. Imagine the thrill of finding a coin that looks normal but turns out to be worth a life-changing amount of money. That's the kind of discovery that makes headlines and sparks coin collecting fever. Auction houses have already proven the demand. Stories of average people selling their 1,965 quarters for thousands have created a wave of interest. One such quarter struck on a silver planchet shocked collectors when it sold for more than $7,500. Another example, in high mint state condition, went for over $10,000. These aren't myths. These are real sales that prove the coin's value is not just hype. Think about this. The Washington quarter design has been around since 1932, and millions were made each year. But the 1965 stands out like a shining star because of its transitional role in U.S. coinage history. That alone ensures its permanent place in numismatic fame. Add the thrill of potential million-dollar errors, and you've got one of the most exciting coins any collector could dream of. Now let's stretch our imagination for a second. Imagine walking into a coin shop or browsing online and spotting a 1965 Washington quarter that looks slightly different. Maybe it feels heavier, maybe the color seems off. You decide to get it tested, and boom, it turns out to be one of the legendary silver planchet errors. Overnight, your life changes because that little piece of metal is now worth tens of thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands of dollars. And if it's the ultimate flawless example, you could be looking at the $1 million mark. That's not just collecting, that's winning the lottery. Even though it's often overlooked, the 1965 Washington quarter deserves every bit of attention we're giving it. It teaches us that history, rarity, and condition all come together to create value. It reminds us that even the most common-looking coins can hold incredible surprises. And most importantly, it shows us that opportunities to find hidden treasure still exist in the modern world. Next up, the 1967 Washington quarter dollar. The 1967 Washington quarter might seem like just another coin from the late 1960s, but collectors know there's far more to the story. This coin represents another turning point in U.S. coinage history, one filled with transition, experimental minting, and errors that have become legendary in the numismatic world. At first glance, it looks like ordinary pocket change, but don't be fooled. The 1967 quarter has the power to be worth hundreds, thousands, and even potentially millions of dollars, depending on its condition, rarity, and the type of error it carries. To fully understand the 1967 Washington quarter, let's rewind to the context of the time. In 1964, the U.S. Mint officially ended the use of 90% silver in quarters, switching instead to a copper-nickel clad composition starting in 1965. However, public outcry and massive coin hoarding had created such a shortage of circulating coins that the mint was under pressure to produce billions of new quarters. During 1965, 1966, and 1967, the mint made a bold move. They suspended mint marks. That's right, no coin struck during those years carried mint marks, regardless of whether they were produced in Philadelphia, Denver, or San Francisco. This was done to discourage collectors from hoarding newly minted coins based on mint locations. That makes the 1967 quarter unusual in its own right. It's one of the only quarters from the Washington series where you cannot identify the mint origin. But what really excites collectors today are the rare errors and high-grade examples of the 1967 Washington quarter. And here's the shocking truth. Some of these have sold for tens of thousands of dollars, while experts speculate that certain unique varieties could one day command million-dollar prices if discovered in the right condition. Let's start with the high-grade clad quarters. Most 1967 quarters were heavily circulated because they were minted in enormous quantities and used in everyday commerce. As a result, finding one in pristine condition is exceptionally rare. A coin graded MS 65 might only fetch a small premium, but once you enter the territory of MS 67 and above, the prices skyrocket. For example, a 1967 Washington quarter graded MS 67 Plus by PCGS has sold for more than $8,000. That's incredible for a non-silver clad coin. Now imagine the possibility of an MS 68 or MS 69 specimen being discovered. Its value could easily push into the six-figure range. And if paired with a rare error, we're talking about the kind of million-dollar headlines that shake the coin world. One of the most famous and desirable types of errors in the 1967 quarter is the double die variety. A double die occurs when the die imprints the design twice on the coin at slightly different angles, creating a doubling effect on features like the date, lettering, or Liberty's profile. In 1967, several double die quarters were struck, and these are among the most collectible varieties. Depending on the visibility of the doubling and the coin's condition, such pieces have been known to sell for hundreds to thousands of dollars. Combine that with a high mint state grade, and suddenly you're looking at a coin that could rival some of the most valuable quarters in history. But perhaps the most dramatic 1967 Washington quarter errors are the off-metal strikes. During this chaotic minting period, a few 1967 quarters were struck on planchets meant for other denominations, such as dimes or even foreign coins. These off-metal errors are incredibly rare and often unique. One such coin, a 1967 Washington quarter struck on a dime planchet, has fetched over $4,000 at auction. But here's the catch. If someone were to find an even rarer off-metal strike, such as a quarter struck on a leftover silver planchet, the price could soar into the hundreds of thousands or more. The possibility of such a coin existing excites collectors and fuels ongoing treasure hunts. Now let's highlight another fascinating detail. 1967 also saw the production of special mint sets, SMS, instead of traditional proof coins. These SMS coins were designed to replace proofs during the mid-1960s and were made with better-than-average strikes and surfaces. The 1967 SMS Washington quarters are already collectible, but when you find one in deep cameo, DCM condition, where the fields are deeply mirrored and the design frosted, the value skyrockets. In fact, a 1967 SMS Washington quarter graded SP 68 DCM has sold for over $5,000. These coins are visually stunning, and collectors pay top dollar for them. But it doesn't stop there. Some SMS coins contain striking anomalies, such as struck-through errors, where foreign material, like grease or cloth fibers, interfered with the strike. These unique coins tell the story of minting mishaps and can fetch thousands. A dramatic struck-through 1967 SMS quarter, in pristine condition, could easily sell for a five-figure price tag. And let's not forget about the dream scenario, the discovery of a transitional error. Imagine if a 1967 quarter were accidentally struck on a 90% silver planchet left over for 1964, or even a 40% silver planchet meant for other experimental strikes. While extremely rare, transitional errors are some of the most valuable coins ever created. If one were authenticated in high grade, it could truly command hundreds of thousands, or even cross into the million-dollar range. That's the kind of story that makes national headlines and cements the coin as one of the greatest numismatic treasures ever found. So why should everyday people care about the 1967 Washington quarter? Because unlike ultra-rare coins that are virtually impossible to find, the 1967 quarter was minted in massive numbers, meaning examples are still in circulation today. You could check your pocket change, dig through an old jar of coins, or browse through inherited collections and stumble upon one of these treasures. Imagine realizing that a coin you thought was worth just 25 cents is actually a $10,000 payday, or maybe even more. That's the thrill that keeps collectors and treasure hunters motivated. Auction records continue to prove that the demand for 1967 quarters is alive and well. High-grade specimens consistently fetch thousands. SMS deep cameos reach five-figure sales, and rare off-metal errors ignite bidding wars. And the best part? Every year, new discoveries keep surfacing. It's entirely possible that the next $1 million Washington quarter hasn't even been found yet. It could be hiding in someone's loose change right now. The 1967 Washington quarter also carries a piece of American history. It reflects the coinage crisis of the 1960s, the experimentation with new minting methods, and the attempt by the mint to discourage hoarding. That history alone gives the coin significance beyond its face value. Add in the possibility of once-in-a-lifetime errors, and you have a coin that embodies everything collectors love: rarity, mystery, and incredible value. Let's think big for a moment. Imagine you're the person who discovers a flawless 1967 Washington quarter struck on a silver planchet. The coin gets authenticated by PeaceGS or NGC, graded MS-68, and placed in a prestigious auction. The bidding war begins, and collectors from around the world fight for the chance to own it. The hammer falls, and suddenly, you're holding a check for $1 million or more. All from a coin most people wouldn't look twice at. Next up, the 1971 Washington quarter dollar. The 1971 Washington quarter is one of those coins that almost every American has held at some point, but very few realize just how valuable certain examples can be. At first glance, it seems like an ordinary clad quarter, just another piece of change tossed into jars, vending machines, and parking meters. But here's the thrilling truth. Some 1971 quarters are hiding extraordinary secrets that make them worth thousands of dollars, and in the rarest cases, potentially millions. Collectors everywhere know this date as one filled with potential treasures, and today, we'll reveal why this coin is one you should never overlook. To understand the 1971 quarter, let's step back into the coinage history of the early 1970s. By 1971, the transition away from silver coinage was complete. Quarters minted in this year were all struck in copper-nickel clad composition, unlike the pre-1965 coins made with 90% silver. At the same time, the U.S. Mint was still refining its new production techniques, and millions of coins were struck at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints. Unlike 1965 to 67 quarters that carried no mint marks, 1971 coins once again featured mint marks, making it possible to distinguish between those struck in Philadelphia, no mint mark, and those from Denver, D-mint mark. This detail alone opens up collecting opportunities for varieties. But what really matters here are the errors, high grades, and unusual anomalies that elevate this coin's value far beyond its face. The most exciting aspect of the 1971 quarter lies in its rare minting errors. During this period, mistakes were not uncommon, and some of these errors are now worth staggering sums. One of the most dramatic types is the off-metal error. Imagine a quarter accidentally struck on a planchet mint for a dime, nickel, or even a foreign coin. These mistakes create coins that are unique and highly collectible. For example, a 1971 Washington quarter struck on a dime planchet has sold for over $4,000. But here's where things get jaw-dropping. If someone were to discover a 1971 quarter struck on a leftover silver planchet, or even on the wrong foreign planchet, its rarity could send the price skyrocketing into the six-figure or even million-dollar territory. Then there's the fascinating world of double die varieties. A double die occurs when the die used to strike the coin imprints the design elements twice, slightly misaligned. This creates the appearance of doubling on the date, letters, or Liberty's features. While double die varieties exist across many years of the Washington quarter, 1971 is one of those dates where sharp-eyed collectors have spotted unique double dies. Depending on the strength and clarity of the doubling, these coins can fetch hundreds or thousands of dollars. And if a dramatic, never-before-seen double die were authenticated in pristine condition, the value could reach unprecedented levels. But it's not just about errors. High-grade, mint-state examples of the 1971 quarter are also worth big money. Remember, most quarters from this year entered circulation immediately and picked up scratches, nicks, and wear. That means finding a near-perfect 1971 quarter is extremely rare. Grading services like PCGS and NGC have certified only a handful of these coins in ultra-high grades. For instance, a 1971 Washington quarter graded MS 67 has sold for thousands, with some reaching prices of $3,500 to $4,000. Now imagine if someone were to discover a flawless MS 68 or MS 69 specimen, a coin virtually perfect in every way. Such a coin could sell for tens of thousands of dollars, perhaps even crossing the six-figure mark, given the right demand at auction. And let's not forget about the proof versions of the 1971 Washington quarter. While regular circulation strikes were minted in Philadelphia and Denver, special proof coins were made at the San Francisco Mint with the S Mint mark. These proof coins were struck on specially polished dies and planchets, resulting in sharp, mirror-like finishes. Some of these proofs exhibit the highly desirable cameo or deep cameo contrasts, where the design appears frosted against a mirrored background. These eye-catching coins are incredibly popular among collectors. A 1971 S-proof Washington quarter in deep cameo PR 69 can sell for over $2,000. And while most proof sets are common, the very highest graded deep cameo examples are always in demand, with prices soaring into the thousands of dollars. But here's where things get even more exciting. Some 1971 S-proof quarters have been found with striking errors like double strikes, off-center strikes, or even full brockages. These rare minting mistakes can make a proof coin worth tens of thousands of dollars. Imagine a 1971 S deep cameo proof with a dramatic double strike in PR 69 grade. That's the kind of coin that could ignite a bidding war and easily reach the hundreds of thousands. Now let's talk about the dream scenario for every coin hunter, a 1971 Washington quarter struck in silver. While official records indicate that no silver quarters were made for circulation in 1971, minting mishaps are always possible. The U.S. Mint was still producing 40% silver Eisenhower dollars in 1971, and leftover silver planchets were present at the facilities. If even one silver planchet accidentally made its way into the quarter press, a 1971 silver quarter would be born. Such a coin would be one of the rarest modern U.S. coins in existence, and its value could easily exceed $1 million. To this day, collectors speculate about the existence of such a transitional error, and the possibility keeps treasure hunters combing through rolls of quarters, hoping to strike it rich. Even in everyday circulation, sharp-eyed collectors continue to find anomalies in 1971 quarters. Off-center strikes, where part of the design is missing because the blank planchet was not properly aligned, are popular error types. Depending on how dramatic the off-center strike is, these can bring in $200 to $1,000. The more dramatic the misalignment, the higher the value. Similarly, clipped planchets, where a portion of the coin is missing due to a misfeed of the blank metal strip, are worth hundreds. And if you combine these errors with high-grade condition, you're looking at values that can quickly climb into five figures. Auction houses have already proven the demand. A rare 1971 quarter error can spark intense bidding wars, with final prices shocking even the experts. For instance, a pristine off-metal error once brought in more than $5,000. Another coin, a spectacular proof deep cameo, sold for over $2,500. And when you start looking at the top population coins, the very few certified at the absolute highest grades, the numbers continue to climb. The truth is, the ceiling on the value of the 1971 Washington quarter hasn't been reached yet. If a one-of-a-kind silver transitional error or flawless MS-69 example were to surface, it could completely rewrite the record books. So what does this mean for collectors and casual viewers alike? It means the 1971 Washington Quarter is far more than a piece of everyday change. It's a coin filled with hidden opportunities, a canvas for minting errors, and a potential gateway to life-changing wealth. From $200 off-center errors to $4,000 mint state specimens, from $2,500 proofs to the dream of $1 million silver error, the range of possibilities is enormous. Next up, we have a 1965 Washington Quarter Dollar, a coin that carries huge historical significance because it marked the first year of a major change in U.S. coinage. Collectors love to talk about this coin, not just because it's over half a century old, but because 1965 was the year when a U.S. mint officially stopped making silver quarters. Before this, quarters were 90% silver, but starting in 1965, the mint switched to a clad composition of copper and nickel. This makes the 1965 quarter a landmark coin in American numismatic history. Imagine holding one of these coins. You're holding the beginning of an era where silver was removed from everyday change, an event that forever changed the way coins were made in the United States. The 1965 quarter looks just like earlier Washington quarters, featuring George Washington's bust on the obverse with the word Liberty above, the date 1965 below, and In God We Trust to the left. On the reverse, the majestic eagle with spread wings stands above olive branches, symbolizing peace and strength, along with United States of America and quarter dollar. At first glance, you might think it's just like the silver quarters before it, but the real difference is in its metal content. Instead of 90% silver, the 1965 quarter is a clad coin with a copper core sandwiched between nickel layers. This change saved the mint money during the coin shortage of the 1960s, but it also made silver quarters much more collectible. Now let's talk mintage. The U.S. Mint produced an enormous number of 1,965 quarters, over 1.8 billion pieces, making it one of the highest mintage quarters ever. That huge mintage means that most circulated examples are worth just face value, but collectors don't look at the 1965 quarter for its common circulated version. Instead, the real excitement comes from the special varieties, mint errors, and high-grade uncirculated or proof-like coins. Since 1965 quarters were struck without a mint mark, regardless of whether they were made in Philadelphia, Denver, or San Francisco, it adds a little twist for collectors. One of the biggest things to know about the 1965 quarter is the rare transitional error. Some quarters were accidentally struck on leftover 90% silver planchets from 1964. These silver 1965 quarters are incredibly rare and worth thousands of dollars. Imagine finding one of those in circulation. It would be like striking gold. To test if your 1965 quarter is silver, you can check the edge. Clad quarters show a copper-colored stripe along the edge, while silver quarters are solid silver all the way through. This is one of the most famous and valuable errors in modern U.S. coinage. But even among clad quarters, condition plays a huge role in value. Most 1965 quarters found today are heavily circulated, scratched, and worn. However, if you come across a brilliant uncirculated example graded MS-65 or higher, its value can jump significantly. High-grade examples with strong luster and no contact marks can fetch $25, $50, or even more, depending on collector demand. But it doesn't stop there. Special coins with proof-like surfaces or sharp strikes can bring hundreds of dollars at auction. The record prices for certain high-grade 1965 quarters are jaw-dropping. Speaking of record sales, let's look at some standout auction results. A rare silver 1965 quarter graded MS-62 once sold for over $7,000. Another in higher grade fetched nearly $10,000. Even clad versions can be valuable if they're in pristine condition. For example, an MS-68 graded 1965 Washington quarter can command over $1,000 because of its extreme rarity in such high grade. These values show just how much collectors are willing to pay for exceptional examples of a coin that most people overlook as ordinary pocket change. Another thing to note is the absence of proof sets in 1965. The Mint stopped producing traditional proof sets from 1965 to 1967 and instead issued special Mint sets, SMS. These SMS coins were struck with more care than regular circulation strikes, but weren't quite as high quality as proofs. Some 1965 SMS quarters have incredible cameo or deep cameo contrast, with frosty designs against mirror-like fields. These SMS coins are especially desirable, and high-grade cameo examples can be worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars. If you're a collector, looking into SMS 1965 quarters is a must. Let's also dive into the fun world of errors and varieties. Collectors love hunting down double dies, off-center strikes, broad strikes, clip planchets, and other mistakes that happen during the minting process. A 1965 quarter with a dramatic error can be worth far more than its face value. For example, off-center strikes where part of the design is missing or quarters struck on nickel planchets instead of quarter planchets can bring hundreds at auction. Every collector dreams of finding one of these treasures in their change jar. The 1965 Washington quarter also represents a broader story in American coinage, the transition away from precious metals. Before 1965, U.S. dimes, quarters, and half dollars all contained 90% silver. But as silver prices rose and coin shortages hit, the government made the decision to switch to copper-nickel-clad coins. This was controversial at the time, and many people hoarded older silver coins. Today, that's why finding silver quarters in circulation is rare, while clad 1965 quarters remain common. The 1965 quarter, therefore, is more than just a coin. It's a symbol of a major shift in U.S. history. When it comes to collecting strategies, many collectors like to build complete Washington quarter sets, including all dates and mint marks from 1932 to 1998. The 1965 quarter is an essential part of this set, even though it has no mint mark. Others focus on type collections, where the 1965 quarter is collected as the first clad issue. Some focus on error collections, where the transitional silver error is a holy grail. No matter what approach you take, the 1965 Washington quarter has a place in every collection. Another fun fact, although the design stayed the same, the feel of the 1965 quarter was noticeably different from earlier silver quarters. Collectors, and even regular people at the time, noticed a change in sound when coins clinked together. Silver coins have a distinct ring, while clad coins sound duller. For many Americans in the mid-1960s, this change was a reminder that silver coins were disappearing from their pockets. Holding a 1965 quarter today brings back that moment in history when everyday money shifted forever. In summary, the 1965 Washington quarter dollar is much more than just a coin from the 1960s. It's the first clad quarter, a symbol of change, and a collector's favorite because of its history, varieties, and errors. Most circulated examples may only be worth 25 cents, but the rare silver, transitional errors, and high-grade mint state coins can reach values in the thousands. If you're lucky enough to find a silver 1965 quarter, you're holding one of the rarest modern U.S. coins. Even if you just have the clad version, it's a great piece of history to keep in your collection. The 1965 Washington quarter is proof that sometimes even the most common-looking coins can hide incredible stories and surprising value. Next up is the 1990 Washington quarter dollar, a coin that may look ordinary to most people, but to collectors and coin enthusiasts, it carries stories of hidden value, minting history, and potential worth far beyond its face value. The 1990 quarter was struck at three main facilities: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. Philadelphia produced coins without a mint mark. Denver coins carry the D, mint mark, and San Francisco coins bear the S, mint mark, with many of those struck as proofs. At first glance, the 1990 quarter might seem like any other in your pocket change. But what makes this coin especially engaging is that certain minting varieties, condition levels, and collector demand can turn an ordinary piece into something truly valuable. The Philadelphia Mint struck over 613 million of these quarters, while the Denver Mint produced over 927 million. That sheer volume might suggest they're common, but that's exactly why pristine and rare examples stand out so much in the market. Collectors know that in such massive production runs, errors slip through, and high-grade coins are much harder to find since most circulated heavily. San Francisco's proof coins, produced in smaller numbers, were primarily sold to collectors and often come in better condition. But even here, unique variations and striking quality can impact their value tremendously. One of the fascinating aspects of the 1990 Washington Quarter is how dramatically its value can swing depending on condition. In circulated condition, it's usually just worth its face value, 25 cents, but in uncirculated or high-grade examples, especially those graded MS-67 or higher, values climb into the hundreds or even thousands of dollars. Imagine holding a coin you thought was pocket change, only to learn it could pay for a new phone or even a small vacation. That's the excitement collectors live for, and that's why the 1990 quarter has become a hot topic in numismatic circles. The San Francisco proofs add another layer of intrigue. These were made with a special minting process that gives them mirror-like surfaces and sharp details. Collectors prize them for their beauty and rarity in higher grades. But even here, there are varieties that can surprise you. A missing mint mark, doubling in the design, or striking errors could dramatically increase the coin's worth. Some proof coins graded PR70, essentially a flawless example, can bring in hundreds of dollars at auction, making them some of the most valuable versions of the 1990 quarter. Error coins are always a huge part of what makes a quarter exciting, and 1990 has its share of fascinating mistakes. Off-center strikes, double dies, clip planchets, and coins struck on the wrong planchet entirely have all been found from this year. For example, if you come across a 1990 quarter that was struck on a nickel or penny blank, that coin could easily be worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars depending on the error and condition. These anomalies are incredibly appealing because they capture moments when the minting process went wrong in ways that should never have left the factory. It's like finding a hidden message in the machinery of history. Another interesting factor is the nostalgia and historical relevance tied to coins from the early 1990s. This was a transitional period in American coinage, with the Washington Quarter design nearing the end of its long run before the state quarters program kicked off in 1999. That means collectors often look at 1,990 quarters as part of the last era of traditional Washington quarters before a new wave of designs began reshaping U.S. coin collecting. It gives the 1990 issues a bit of added charm and significance. Market demand also drives the value of the 1990 Washington Quarter. While most people see these coins as common, collectors chase the rare gems, those flawless mint state examples, proof coins with perfect grading and spectacular minting errors. Auction records show some MS-67 and MS-68 examples selling for well over $1,000. That kind of money for a coin minted in the hundreds of millions just shows how condition, rarity, and collector passion work together to create value. Now let's talk about what you should look for if you have a 1990 quarter in your hands. First, check for the mint mark, whether it's a D, an S, or no mint mark at all. Next, look closely for errors like doubling on the obverse lettering or misaligned strikes. If it's a proof coin, inspect the mirror finish and details, because imperfections or unusual features can boost its value. Finally, consider the coin's condition. If it has sharp details, strong luster, and minimal scratches or wear, it may be worth sending to a grading service like PCGS or NGC to get an official grade, which can dramatically increase its resale value. Collectors often emphasize how exciting it is to search through rolls of quarters from the bank or boxes of old coins in the attic, hoping to spot a rare 1990 gem. The thrill comes from knowing that the vast majority are worth only a quarter, but a few select ones could be life-changing finds. That's why these coins remain so popular for both beginner and veteran collectors. They represent both the everyday and the extraordinary, blending common circulation with the possibility of rare and valuable treasures. So, the 1990 Washington Quarter is much more than just another coin from your pocket. It's a piece of American history minted during a time of change. It's a collector's hunt for hidden gems, and it's a coin that proves even the most ordinary-looking change can hold extraordinary value. Whether you're just starting your numismatic journey or you're a seasoned collector, this coin reminds us to always look closer, because you never know when a little piece of metal could turn out to be worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars. Next up is the 1995 Washington Quarter Dollar, a coin that often flies under the radar, but carries fascinating details for collectors and enthusiasts alike. By 1995, the Washington Quarter had already seen decades of circulation since its introduction in 1932, yet this particular year holds a unique position in the series as it bridges the gap between the traditional designs and the soon-arrived state quarters program launched in 1999. This makes the 1995 quarter an important transitional coin, representing the end of an era just before a revolution in U.S. coinage began. The 1995 quarter was struck in two primary mints: Philadelphia, represented by the P mint mark, and Denver, marked with a D. Additionally, proof versions were minted in San Francisco with the S mint mark, including both standard clad proofs and higher quality silver proofs intended for collectors. The clad circulation strikes were produced in huge numbers, over 2 billion combined from Philadelphia and Denver, so at first glance, they may not seem rare. However, the real story lies in their condition, die varieties, and proof issues. For collectors, one of the biggest attractions of the 1995 Washington Quarter lies in its proof editions. The silver proof quarters, minted in San Francisco, were struck with exceptional sharpness and mirror-like fields, designed specifically for coin enthusiasts. These silver proofs, made of 90% silver and 10% copper, are especially desirable for their precious metal content and beauty. While not exceedingly rare, high-grade examples with perfect surfaces can fetch premium prices in the numismatic market. Circulation strikes, on the other hand, are abundant, but securing a high-grade mint-state example is challenging. Coins that remained untouched, showing no signs of wear, scratches, or contact marks, are significantly harder to come by because quarters circulated heavily during this period. For instance, while a circulated 1995 quarter might only be worth face value, a pristine mint state 67 or higher specimen could easily sell for $30, $50, or even more depending on collector demand. The Denver minted 1995 D quarters, while similar in mintage to their Philadelphia counterparts, can sometimes display stronger strikes, making them slightly more appealing in higher grades. However, the Philadelphia P coins are known for occasional weak strikes and bag marks, so high-quality survivors from this mint could demand higher prices. Another exciting aspect of the 1995 Washington Quarter is the potential for errors and varieties. Collectors are always on the hunt for double dies, off-center strikes, and other minting mishaps. While not as famous as the 1972 double die Lincoln cent or the 1955 double die penny, the 1995 quarter does have reported examples of doubling, most noticeably on the obverse lettering. Such coins are highly sought after and can raise their value dramatically, sometimes into the hundreds of dollars, depending on rarity and visibility of the error. Additionally, some 1995 proof coins were struck with slight variations in cameo contrast, where the frosted design sharply contrasts against the mirrored background. Coins with deep cameo or ultra cameo designations are significantly more desirable to collectors and are worth much more than standard proof issues. Beyond the technicalities of grading and mint errors, the 1995 Washington Quarter is historically fascinating because it marks the last few years before the U.S. Mint introduced one of its most popular programs, the State Quarter Series, beginning in 1999. This means that collectors often look back at the 1995 quarter as part of the final stretch of traditional Washington quarters before their designs diversified. For this reason, it holds nostalgic and transitional significance. Prices for the 1995 Washington quarter vary widely. Circulated examples, as mentioned, generally hold no premium over face value, but mint state and proof coins tell a different story. A clad proof in perfect PR70 condition can reach $50 or more, while silver proofs of the same quality can range from $60 to $150, depending on demand. Rare varieties or top-graded circulation strikes can cross into the hundreds, especially when certified by major grading services like PCGS or NGC. For casual collectors, the 1995 quarter is an easy coin to add to their collections since it is relatively modern and still found in circulation. However, the thrill lies in cherry-picking high-quality examples or stumbling upon an error coin, which can transform a common pocket change find into a valuable collectible. To wrap it up, the 1995 Washington quarter dollar may seem common on the surface, but it hides plenty of treasures beneath its ordinary appearance. From its proof silver issues to rare error coins and high-grade mint state examples, this coin has much to offer both casual hobbyists and serious numismatists. And as the bridge between the classic Washington quarter era and the revolutionary state quarters program, the 1995 edition stands as a key marker in U.S. coinage history, worth keeping an eye on whether for its beauty, its errors, or its collectible potential. Next up, the 1970 Washington quarter, a coin that has fascinated collectors for decades, not only because of its role in American pocket change, but also due to the hidden gems that lie within this year's production. At first glance, a 1970 quarter may look like just another regular piece of change, but for those who know what to look for, this coin can represent a fortune. Some rare varieties and errors of the 1970 Washington quarter have been known to sell for thousands, and in certain unique circumstances, even higher. This year is particularly important for collectors because of the transition in minting practices and the scarcity of certain high-grade versions. The 1970 Washington quarter was struck at 3 mints: Philadelphia, no mint mark; Denver, D, and San Francisco, S. The most common issues were struck for circulation at Philadelphia and Denver, while the San Francisco Mint produced proof coins. What makes this year especially exciting is the discovery of unique mint errors and unusual varieties that set it apart from other quarters of its era. When you think about a quarter being worth thousands, it is these rare versions that command such staggering prices. The Philadelphia Mint struck millions of 1970 quarters, and while most of these are common and worth only face value in circulation, condition plays a crucial role. A regular 1970 quarter in poor condition might only bring you 25 cents, but in mint state grades, values can jump significantly. For example, a 1970 quarter graded MS65 by PCGS or NGC can be worth anywhere from $20 to $60, while superb gem examples in MS67 or higher can sell for several $100s. The rarity is in the quality. Finding a perfectly preserved quarter from 1970 is no easy task, especially considering the decades of circulation most of these coins have endured. The Denver Mint also produced a large number of 1,970 quarters, but like Philadelphia issues, their value skyrockets with condition and unique varieties. The most common Denver 1970 quarter is worth slightly more than face value in circulated condition, but uncirculated examples graded MS66 and above can range from $50 to $300. However, the real stars of the 1970 quarter series come from the San Francisco Mint. San Francisco's proof coins from 1970 were struck with mirrored finishes, intended specifically for collectors rather than circulation. Most proof sets from 1970 can be purchased for modest amounts, often around $10 to $15, but within these proof coins lies one of the most famous varieties in modern coin collecting. The 1970 Washington quarter struck on a 1941 Canadian quarter planchet. This extraordinary mint error has become a legend among collectors, fetching upwards of $35,000 at auction. Imagine holding a coin that looks like a normal 1970 quarter at first, but upon close inspection reveals signs of the wrong planchet underneath. That kind of rarity is what makes the 1970 quarter truly legendary. Another fascinating variety comes from the 1970 proof double die obverse. This error features visible doubling on the inscriptions, such as "In God We Trust" and "Liberty." Depending on the degree of doubling and the condition of the coin, These can sell for hundreds or even thousands of dollars. Error coins like this are highly sought after because they combine rarity with a strong visual appeal, making them attractive to both seasoned numismatists and new collectors looking for something unique. When considering the value of the 1970 quarter, condition, rarity, and demand all play crucial roles. Circulated examples may only be worth face value, but high-grade mint state coins and error varieties can bring huge premiums. For example, an MS-67 Philadelphia quarter might sell for around $1,000, while an MS-68 could fetch double or even triple that. Denver Mint coins in similar high grades also command strong prices, though slightly lower than Philadelphia issues due to availability. The San Francisco proof coins are the crown jewels of 1970. Not only are standard deep cameo proofs worth good money, sometimes $50 to $200 depending on condition, but rare errors like the Canadian Planchet Strike and double die obverse make the 1970 S-proof quarter one of the most talked about modern coins in American numismatics. Now, let's put this into perspective. Most people see a quarter as just small change, yet a handful of 1970 quarters are worth more than an entire year's salary. The reason these coins are so valuable lies in their rarity and uniqueness. A collector might go their entire life without stumbling across one of these legendary errors. That's why, if you ever come across a 1970 quarter, it's worth taking a closer look before spending it. It's also important to note that 1970 marked an era when the Washington quarter design was well established, but still in a transitional phase. Collectors today often focus on the series for its historical significance, as it represents the United States coinage leading up to the bicentennial celebration just a few years later. This adds another layer of appeal to owning a rare 1970 quarter. It's not just about money, but also about holding a piece of history that connects to a larger narrative of American culture and coinage. Auction records show how crazy the market can get for the rarest varieties. For example, the aforementioned 1970 S-proof struck on a Canadian planchet stunned the coin world when it sold for tens of thousands. Meanwhile, high-grade business strikes and proofs continue to climb in value as demand grows among collectors. With the rising popularity of coin collecting, especially with younger generations discovering the thrill of the hunt, the 1970 quarter's reputation as a modern rarity only continues to grow. So, whether you're a casual collector or a serious numismatist, the 1970 Washington quarter offers an incredible opportunity. From standard mint state issues that can bring in decent returns to jaw-dropping rarities that can make you rich, this coin has something for everyone. The key takeaway is simple. Check your change, look carefully at proof sets, and always be on the lookout for doubling or unusual planchet signs. That small coin sitting in your pocket could be a life-changing treasure. Next up, the 1980 Washington $quarter coin. When people think of the 1980s, they often imagine a time of vibrant culture, booming technology, and dramatic changes in the economy. But for coin collectors, the early 1980s hold another kind of treasure, the coins that slipped into circulation during those years. Among them, the 1980 Washington quarter stands out. At first glance, it might look like just another common quarter, the type you've probably spent thousands of times without thinking twice. But here's the twist. While most 1,980 quarters are worth face value, some rare varieties and high-grade examples can be worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars. That's the kind of surprise that keeps collectors hooked, knowing that what looks like an ordinary piece of pocket change could turn out to be a jackpot. The 1980 quarter carries the familiar design that Americans had already come to know for decades. On the obverse, you'll see the classic profile of George Washington, designed by John Flanagan. His face has been etched into American currency since 1932, when the quarter was redesigned to commemorate the bicentennial of Washington's birth. By 1980, his portrait had already been in use for nearly 50 years, and it had become a deeply rooted symbol of the nation's identity. The word liberty is stamped above his head, a reminder of what the Founding Fathers stood for. On the left, the motto, "In God We Trust," sits proudly, and beneath Washington's neckline, you'll find the date 1980, anchoring the coin firmly in that era of American history. Flip the coin over, and you'll be greeted by another familiar sight. The majestic bald eagle, wings spread wide, perched on a bundle of arrows, with olive branches below. This reverse design, also by Flanagan, represents both the strength and peace of the United States. The inscriptions United States of America and E Pluribus Unum out of many one crown the eagle, while the denomination $quarter is written boldly along the bottom. It's a design that collectors love for its powerful symbolism and enduring beauty. Now, what makes the 1980 Washington quarter so interesting to collectors? The answer lies in mint marks, condition, and errors. Three mints were responsible for producing quarters that year: Philadelphia, no mint mark; Denver, D; and San Francisco, S. The Philadelphia Mint produced the highest number of quarters in 1980, and those coins carry no mint mark. While these are extremely common in circulated condition, finding one in pristine, uncirculated grade can still bring a premium to collectors. The Denver Mint, marked with a bold D on the obverse, also churned out millions of quarters. Much like Philadelphia issues, these are easy to find in worn condition but can become quite valuable when discovered in top mint state grades. The San Francisco Mint struck proof coins for collectors. These proofs, with their mirror-like fields and frosted devices, were never meant to circulate. If you come across a 1980 S-proof quarter, especially in its original packaging, it's worth far more than face value. Some even command hundreds of dollars, depending on grade and cameo contrast. But here's where things get really exciting: the error coins. Error quarters are what make collectors' eyes light up, because they're the quirks and accidents of the minting process that slipped through quality control. The 1980 Washington quarter has several notable errors. Off-center strikes. If the coin wasn't perfectly aligned during striking, part of the design can appear shifted, with some of the detail missing. The more dramatic the off-center, the more valuable it becomes. Double die errors. When the die strikes slightly more than once, certain letters or numbers appear doubled. A doubling on the date, 1980, or on the motto, "In God We Trust," can bring in serious money. Clip planchets. Sometimes, the blank metal disc used to strike the coin is cut improperly, leaving a curved clip missing from the coin. These clipped errors are rare and highly collectible. Transitional planchet errors. These are extremely rare, but if a coin was struck on the wrong metal composition, its value can skyrocket. For collectors, condition is everything. Grading services like PCGS and NGC assign coins a grade from 1 to 70, with MS 70 being a perfect coin free from blemishes. A 1980 quarter in average circulated condition is worth just 25 cents. But if you have one in MS 65 or higher, you're talking about a coin that can sell for $20, $50, or even more depending on demand. A high-grade example with a strong strike, good luster, and no visible marks could easily fetch hundreds of dollars at auction. One of the highest reported auction prices for a 1980 Washington quarter was for a 1980 D quarter graded MS 67 by PCGS, which sold for over $1,000. Now, that might not sound like millions, but remember, this is a coin that most people would have spent on a soda or a gumball without thinking twice. That's the magic of coin collecting. The thrill of turning the ordinary into something extraordinary. Another fascinating detail about the 1980 quarter is its place in American history. By 1980, the U.S. Mint had been using a copper-nickel clad composition for quarters since 1965. This meant that instead of being made of silver like older quarters, the 1980 quarter was struck from a mix of copper and nickel. That makes it less intrinsically valuable in terms of metal content, but its collectible value can still be huge in the right circumstances. Interestingly, because of inflation in the 1970s and 80s, quarters became more important in everyday transactions. Vending machines, arcade games, payphones, all relied on quarters. So the 1980 Washington quarter isn't just a coin, it's a symbol of daily life in America during that time. For many collectors, the nostalgia factor is also a big deal. The 1980s were a time of bold fashion, MTV, and cultural shifts. Owning a pristine 1980 quarter can feel like holding on to a small piece of that history. Whether you grew up dropping quarters into Pac-Man machines or using them for phone calls, the connection to the past is powerful. So, how do you know if your 1980 Washington quarter is valuable? The first step is to check the mint mark. Coins from San Francisco, especially proofs, are always worth more. Then, examine the condition. Does the coin still have its original luster? Are there scratches or dings? If it looks like it just rolled off the minting press, it could be worth getting graded. And finally, look for errors. If the lettering looks doubled or the strike is off-center, you might just have a small fortune sitting in your coin jar. Let's break it down simply. 1980 P and 1980 D quarters in circulated condition, 25 cents. Uncirculated examples, MS, 65 or higher $20 to $200, sometimes more. 1980 S-proof quarters, $5 to $50, depending on quality. Rare errors or top-graded coins, hundreds to thousands of dollars. For collectors and treasure hunters, the 1980 Washington quarter proves that you don't need gold or silver to find value. Even a humble copper-nickel clad quarter, when preserved in perfect condition or struck with a rare error, can be a highly prized collectible. And who knows, maybe you've got one hiding in your pocket right now.